It really is an honor to be here. To say that it's a privilege to come back and speak to folks in the Granite State, in the state that I grew up in the state that, as was noted earlier, I mean, there is no finer motto, and we've got a good one, and I might even touch on it in a moment, but there is no finer motto than live free or die. I mean, there just isn't. There is nothing more emblematic of what it means to be a Republican, to what it means to be a conservative, even more importantly, what it means to be an American, than to live free or die. This is the greatness of who we are. There was mention of something. The reason I jumped over there, I have something. Before I begin, one of the dangers, it's both good news and bad news. The good news is I have no notes. The bad news is I have no notes. So I can't promise you. Somebody said they looked forward to hearing what I was going to say, and I told them so do I. So it could be interesting, but I was struck by something that was said about this little bell company. And I have here a little bell that was made by this little bell company. And this is the last little bell company in North America that makes bells of this type, or of any kind that you would use with your hands. I make all the bells for the Salvation Army, kettle ringers, for example. But this little bell has the state motto of Kentucky on one side. I'll allude to that in a moment. And on the other side, it has a little inaugural seal. It was not my intent to do this, but what I'm going to do is leave it in your hands. And whoever would like this, I'll even sign it on the side with a little Sharpie. And if you want to auction it off or raffle it off or do whatever you want with it, it may not be worth much. So I'm going to be gone. You won't insult me as to whatever it goes for. It will be my small contribution to the cause. I want to start by thanking each of you tremendously for being here. You know why you're here. Maybe you came for different reasons. But you came here ultimately to support something that's bigger than each of you individually. And you paid for lunch a price that frankly exceeds the value of the lunch itself. And and that's all right. But you did it. Sorry about that. I had nothing to do with that. No, it's a great lunch. It's actually an excellent lunch. I wish I had more time to finish it. I was the second of 6 children. I was involved in 4-H. I'm grateful for that. It was a wonderful experience, the Cooperative Extension Service. I was sitting with a young man who's a student at the University of New Hampshire, which incidentally, and I can say this as an expert, having tried every one of them that I know of, you do still have the finest dairy bar in America. You do. If you're not familiar with it, I would encourage you to make yourself known to it. You will not be sorry. But I'll tell you, so many things that were afforded to me as opportunity as a young person through 4-H. It was my ticket to ride, in large measure. First time I ever flew in an airplane, 17 years old. I won a trip through 4-H to represent New Hampshire at National 4-H Conference. Second time I ever flew in an airplane was to represent New Hampshire at 4-H Congress in Chicago. So I have a lot of good memories here. This is where I'm from. This is where my roots are. And some of you appreciate this given the weather that we are experiencing now and the weather that's ahead of us in the months to come. We actually had no central heat in our house. Believe it or not, we had 2 little wood stoves that went out every night. But I was raised by a mother who would get up every morning and start those stoves. At 5:30 in the morning, typically, she'd get up, start those little stoves up with some birch bark and blue tip matches, the little diamond tip matches in the big box. That was my life. But I've never forgotten something she said to me one morning by that little kitchen stove that really, even before we went off to school, never heated up enough that you couldn't actually put your hands on the sides of it to try to derive some warmth before you headed out the door. One morning I was the only one up, actually, and I was sitting there with her, actually standing behind the stove when she said to me something that I've never forgotten. I'm sure I rolled my eyes when she said it. I'm sure I pretended not to hear, might have even huffed, which I was 17 years old. It's what 17-year-olds sometimes do. But she said, all you kids are different. I was the second of 6 children. She said, your father and I, we don't care what it is you do. We don't care what it is that you focus on. We don't care what it is that you study or where you go. Just make sure that at the end of every day, you give back more than you take. I've never forgotten that. That was a little nugget that was put in my mind when I was 17 years old. This is a state. Ours is a party. Ours is a nation that affords people like nowhere else on earth to give back more than we take. So why are you here? Why are you here today? Did you come just so that maybe you would see the next presidential candidates who will end up being the next president? Certainly that is a very real possibility. I hope it to be the case. Did you come here for that reason? Did you come here for the lunch? Did you come here just to rub elbows with people because you knew they would be here? Or did you come here for something bigger than that? Every single one of us in this room says we want a better America. We say we want a better New Hampshire, a better Kentucky, in the case of my fellow citizens. My question to you is, how badly do you want it? How badly do you want a better America? How badly do you want a better party? How badly do you want things to change? Because I'll tell you, if you don't want it as badly as our founding fathers, the people who pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honors, that wasn't a bumper sticker. That wasn't a campaign slogan. Every single one of them pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, and every single one of them gave some or all of those things. If you don't want it that badly, if you don't want it as badly as the men who in the winter of 1776, if they were fortunate enough to even own shoes at Valley Forge, they ate those shoes to keep from starving to death. Do you want it that badly? Do you want it as badly as the men who came off transport carriers on Omaha Beach, who knew when they left that vehicle, as they landed on that beach, some short of the beach, jumping into water up to and in some cases over their heads, they knew they were not going to live. They saw their buddies dying in front of them on the beach. They stepped over their friends' dead bodies trying to get 10 more yards up the beach so that somebody else could get 10 yards further up the beach. Do you want it that badly? How badly do you want it? You say you want a better America. Do you want it that badly? Because I'll tell you, if we don't want it that badly, if there is not within every single one of us some willingness to make even some modicum of sacrifice to that degree, we don't deserve a better America. We don't. And yet I do think a better America is possible. We are the last great beacon of hope. First in the nation means something because you are at the front of the spear, the tip of the spear. You're at the very front of the wave. You are the ones who will help determine what the future of America looks like. That's going to be upon us just in a matter of days and weeks here. Take that seriously. You care enough to be here. You care enough to be here. You're here on purpose. You were gracious enough to write a check to make this possible. And I'm grateful to you for that because, as was noted, these things don't work by themselves. They take an effort. They take you parting with dollars that you earned the hard way. But I ask you, please, take your responsibility at the ballot box seriously. Because for every one of you who took the time to be here, every one of you knows 1, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 people who will not even bother to vote if you don't ask them to. Shame on us. Shame on us as a society. Shame on us as individuals if we don't take this with a sense of urgency and a sense of conviction, the likes of which made this the greatest nation on earth. And don't kid yourself, despite what our current president would have us believe and our current Secretary of State and the one that preceded him, we are the greatest nation on earth. And we don't need to keep apologizing for the greatness of America. But what's going to keep it that way? You're going to keep it that way. I met with a number of young cadets earlier who were so gracious in their support of this effort and in welcoming us into this room. A lot of young people here in high school. One of my children, I happen to have 9 children. Some of you may know that, you may not. Some of you obviously didn't know that based on the reaction that I just got here. 9 children. I told someone we kind of cheated at it a little. We had 5 and then we adopted 4 more. So we did this to ourselves on purpose. So there's no one to blame but ourselves for that one. I have 1/9 of them here. My daughter Olivia. I always try to bring one child. It's like a rolling civics lesson. Olivia, who's 14 years old. But I was talking with her. I was talking to other young people, freshmen in college, seniors in high school. I look around this room. I see some other young people. This is your world. The decisions made by those of us that can vote. We're making a decision that's going to affect a whole lot of you. Some of you are first-time voters yourselves. Take this seriously. Take this very seriously. It's interesting, very famously and known to many of you in this room, something I was always very proud of, especially because I lived in Coos County. Probably the most famous statesman in New Hampshire history, arguably at least, Daniel Webster, a man known by name at least to many of you, very famously said something about the old man in the mountain. You're probably familiar with this. He said, you know, watchman, I'm going to paraphrase him. He said, watchmakers hang a large watch outside their establishment to show their handiwork. A bootmaker, cobbler might hang a large boot outside his establishment. He said a dentist might hang a large gold tooth. But here in the North Country, here in New Hampshire, God Almighty himself has hung out the profile of a man to show that this is where he makes real men. And the real men and the real women that are the future of America, the backbone of America, the greatness of America, the possibility, the promise, the hope of America comes out of the small towns in states like New Hampshire, in states like Kentucky, in states across the United States. This is our hope. But it matters. It's important. Don't take it lightly. Please, I beg of you, do not walk out of here thinking you have done your part. You went, you heard, you listened, you wrote a check, you contributed a little bit, and now you're going to go home and you're going to vote when the time comes to do so, but you've done your part. Do more. Step up. Step up and step in like you have never stepped up or stepped in before. If you care about America, care now. If you've ever given, give now. If you've ever thought that the balance that we are in right now could tip one way or the other, care now. I'll tell you what, I believe in the greatness of America. I was blessed with the opportunity to serve this nation in uniform. I served with men who are dead, whose kids grew up without a dad. You think about it. We're here on a cold day, enjoying a nice meal, climate-controlled room. Life is good. We are blessed. These are kids who've grown up and are even now in our generation growing up without dads, without moms. For what? Care like you've never cared before. Be engaged like you've never been engaged before. Be involved like you've never been involved before. This is not a game. This is not a game. I'm grateful to have been raised the way I was raised. It wasn't easy. Driving around in $100 cars with no mufflers was embarrassing when I was 17 years old, I'll tell you. It really was. And it was days like today when it's freezing cold and you'd be like, no, really, Dad, you can just drop me off down here at the end of the road. It's all good. No, really, it's good. He's like, it's like half a mile. No, it's good. I need the exercise, Dad. You don't even have a hat on. It's okay. It's good. It's all right. No worries. But I'll tell you, I'm grateful for that. It's, as my dad used to always say, it's character building. You might have even heard him say that, sir. I mean, he would always tell people it was character building. Years later, he admitted to me when we were actually jump-starting a car, because those of you who know, who've grown up in northern New Hampshire in particular, if you don't go, and you don't have a garage, which we did not, if you don't go out and start your car at about 1 o'clock in the morning, it's not going to start at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now they have blankets and stuff for that. They didn't back then. So, and we were out there one time. I was in the military. I was back visiting. I had a rental car, so it was new. And I was up there visiting my parents, and we went out. We were jump-starting these cars, and the wind was blowing, and we had the cables under there. And it was so cold, and some of you know what I'm talking about, that even if you're wearing leather gloves, the little bit of moisture in that leather freezes so that it's almost like they're made out of wood. And you've got these gloves, you can't even really bend the fingers. So you have to take them off, but immediately you start to feel your hand freezing, so you got to do everything quickly. And it was one of those kind of evenings, and we're under the hood at about midnight, 1 o'clock, and it was like my father never complained. And he would be like, that for him was complaining. I knew he was complaining when he did that. And so I jokingly said to him, even though I was like right under the hood of the same car, I had to yell because the wind was howling and the snow was flying, and I yelled at him. I said, Dad, look at it this way. It's character building. And he looked at me, and I kid you not, this was his exact phrase. Well, I won't even say exactly what it was, because it was one of the only times I ever heard him use a slightly untoward word. And he said, you know, Matt, he said, I think you're old enough now, I can level with you. He said, all these years that I said it was character building, that was just a euphemism for the fact that it's a real pain in the keister. He didn't say keister. He said, but there's really nothing you can do about it. So why complain? And I thought about that, and it's true. Why complain? There's so much for us to complain about, including what we do or don't like about the candidates that we have to choose from. Can we not agree, if nothing else, that there is not one person being presented to us on the Republican side that is not head and shoulders above anything coming from the Democrats? And I'll tell you, whether this person said what you would have said or believed what you would have believed or done what you would have done, there is no one of us in this room or in America who is worthy enough of getting the attention and love and respect and appreciation from every single other person on every issue. It is not possible. Let us remember why we are here. Why are you here? Be here for the things that matter. Fight for the things that matter. Our state motto is, I think, pretty stellar, even though it's not live free or die. It's a picture of two individuals shaking hands with one another. And incidentally, I broke my hand. For those of you who are wondering, this isn't a prop. Some of these Democrats in Kentucky are pretty hard-headed, I've discovered. So I was actually playing freeze tag with my children in the dark, which at my age, not advisable. Went down hard, it's all good. Another 3 weeks, it's supposed to come off. But here's what there is on that flag. There's two individuals shaking hands. There's a statesman and a frontiersman. And the motto above and below them is united we stand, divided we fall. United we stand, divided we fall. It's my challenge to you. There will be plenty of contention in the immediate days ahead. There are those of you in this room that are all in for so-and-so, and those that are in for such and such, and those that are in for the other person. And there's plenty of good people to be behind. But be all in for America. Be all in for conservative values. Be all in for the sacrifice that has been made to make this the greatest nation on earth. Be united, because we will divide ourselves. We will fall as a party. We will fall as a nation if we do not take this seriously. I will close with this. I pray for my two children, for all my children, for two very specific things. I pray for more than two of them. Otherwise I was going to have to answer to her, which ones of us do you pray for? But there are two very specific things that I have always prayed for from the time they were little, both out loud with them when I pray with them out loud, but also as a parent, sometimes when I'm just driving down the road, and especially as they get older. I have 6 girls and 3 boys. I have 5 teenage daughters right now. I'm still smiling. I'm also 1,000 miles from home, so it's all good. But in all seriousness, I mean, this is what I pray for my children. It's my prayer for each of you. It is my prayer for America. I pray for 2 specific things for my young people. That each of my children will have the wisdom and the discernment to know the right thing to do. Because we live in a mixed up world. And I talk to these young people that are heading out into that world, and we're telling young people in particular that in and out and up is down and right is wrong. We are convoluting the message of reality. Everything is relative. We live in a culture, in a world of whatever you want to do is just fine. Baloney, it's not. And so I pray that my children will have discernment, that they will have wisdom, that they will know the difference between what is right and what is wrong, because there is a difference. And my prayer for them is that they will know that difference. But I pray for a second thing as well, and it's my prayer for each of you as you go to the ballot box, as you take what I'm sharing with you and leave this place and make decisions about what you're going to do with it. As you go about your business, in your work, at your churches, in your communities, with your own families, I pray for a second thing for each of you, and that is that you will have the courage to do the right thing. That's the hardest part. There are plenty of people who know the right thing to do. There are plenty of people who know the difference between right and wrong. There are plenty of people who understand what is right. but they lack the intestinal fortitude, they lack the backbone, they lack the courage to do the right thing. My prayer for each of you is that you will not only know the right thing to do, but that you will have the courage to do it, that you will get out there and do it, that you will be the solution, that a government of and by and for the people will continue to be the very thing that differentiates us from the rest of the world, and that the greatness of America is only just beginning. I thank you for letting me be here. I appreciate the opportunity to come home in many respects. God bless each and every one of you. God bless the state of Kentucky and the state of New Hampshire. And truly may God continue to shine his grace on the United States of America. Thank you.